Welcome to model number 7, part 2, the 1400 scale Enterprise D. This is a model that I worked on for a couple of years, 2018 and 2019 specifically. And you can see here how I completed the Aztec paneling on the bottom saucer. That is where I left off at the end of part 2. It was mostly complete. And this is the second narrated old model build slideshow I'm doing for my YouTube channel. There's some better views. You can see them now in more appropriate lighting. You can see the soft blues, and I just kind of put it down on the cushion and use the yellow-orange natural light in my apartment to try and take the proper pictures. You can see it better from certain angles. You can see the light blues against the silver. And then I filled in the metallics near the saucer sensor dome. And I colored in the escape pod, the docking latch hatches on the underside of the saucer, so that it could, it could be separated and it could be displayed in its two distinct modes. And then, of course, I started working on the top saucer Aztec decals. Started from the center and I worked my way out, because the center was the highest point. So if you wanted to make sure that no other decals got wet, you would work from the center out. And you can see how I also worked on the star drive saucer here. I started on the sides, did some detail painting by the docking hatches, the name Enterprise, and some soft metallics inside the docking hatches there, and of course the saucer, the thrusters. And then I started working on the nacelles themselves. I'd already colored them. It was time to put on the Aztecs and the striping. You can see a front view of the star drive here. And there's the starboard side. Now these were taken in my old apartment in Quebec back in 2019. And then I started working on the top of the star drive where it connects to the bottom of the hull. And you can see how I put on some of the names and some of the transport emitters, even before I put on the Aztec decals. And then when I put the Aztec decals on, it covered stuff up, so I realized I'm soon going to have to cut things out. But I turned back to the top saucer before that. And you can see a better shot here of the fully Aztec star drive section. And then what I did is I started putting a yellow Inca Gold base coat down before I put the escape pod decals on, because you can see how plain they look just on the silver hull. Of course, I'd started doing that on the top of the saucer section before I realized, but thankfully I had lots of spares, and I realized the Aztec decals that I'd ordered from Federation Models, they were actually in numerical sequence based on where they go. And this is a picture from the Hobby Club meeting where I joined the ship together, even though it was in progress. And here you can see how almost the entire saucer top is done with the escape pods, both front and back. And of course I did those two back windows there behind the shuttle bay. There's a better view. Sometimes it does show up better in the plain white light. And then from the front it shows up as well. Of course, once I put all the escape pods on, I realized that my the way I did it on the bottom saucer was better. Of course, I colored in all the docking hatches with metallic colors. And so you can see the entire ring of escape pods with the yellow down. Of course, I forgot to do that on the top. I started Aztecing on the top and then realized later I'm going to have to cut away some of the escape pods to make sure they work properly, that they can all be fully visible. But since those are the escape pods that came with the model kit itself, and they basically had 3 repeating numbers all throughout the whole thing, I realized eventually it's no great sacrifice to have to cut away the escape pod themselves on the top saucer. but I managed to do it in such a way, you'll eventually see that I wasn't disturbing the Aztec decal in any way. And you can see how my dining room table at the time turned into essentially a model building workbench. And, I mean, you have the Star Trek Micro Machines. It basically became a catch-all for everything. So when I wasn't working on the ship per se, I just set it somewhere else in its intact configuration so that it would be displayed, but it'd be out of the way. You can see some of my Star Wars Hot Wheels there, and there's a close-up view of the saucer section. It did take a bit of time, a few months, before I realized you have to go across the saucer with the Inca Gold on the escape pods. And then you saw how I started putting all the escape pods on the bottom, since it already got that treatment almost from the beginning. So I got halfway through. You can see it from the front here. You can see the guide for the Aztecs underneath. You started on the other side of the saucer. I just worked my way around from one edge to the other, slowly. Put in the black window decals where they belonged. And you can see the escape pod decal on the bottom right of this picture with the windows. So first I put all the escape pods on. Then I realized I can start putting on the windows also. So that's what I did, starting with the star drive hull. I wanted to see how it would look, because I knew the Krylon chrome allowed the windows to show up. But when the light doesn't hit it right, the windows are nearly invisible. So I decided that with a few metallic accents and window decals, it turns out a lot better. You can see them here on the bottom star drive hull, both from the left and, well, this is the left. The other one was from the back. And here's from the front. You can see them in the recesses in between the front escape pods by the registry number. So I basically did the ship in two sections, decaled everything, but because you don't actually have to glue the saucer to the star drive neck, I realized that it wasn't going to mess up anything. And of course I did the phaser decal, which turned it from a light brown to a dark black. But I did the All Good Things phaser decal. You can see the red stripe around the entire thing. So I put it on in about 2 or 3 distinct sections. I think I managed not to get an overlap anywhere. So it turned out pretty well. You can pretty well see those pictures from all 4 sides. And then I started working on the saucer edge. I gave it a very light blue from my folk art series. Can't quite see it in this picture. Oh, you can on the right. You can on the right. And then, of course, beside the impulse engines also on either side. I figured since this is basically a silver anniversary Star Trek model build, and a silver, because I did a lot of work in 2019, and the last time we saw the Enterprise D on screen was 1994, so that is essentially a 25th anniversary build, so that's why the main hull is Krylon Chrome. Also here you can see the star drive hull where I started putting the windows on the neck. And the shuttle bay numbers. There's the windows on the star drive, right where the Borg attacked and All Good Things, and the Duras sisters attacked in Star Trek Generations. They hit the engineering hull first. You can see it here from the front. And there's the port side. So the windows went on very well. They aligned nicely with the window recesses, the window indents. So the decals worked great for this model. And then here you can see the whole top saucer. It's ready for escape pod decals. As you see, I started on around the bridge model. And you can see here the star drive with more windows up on the top, below near the neck. You can see the Enterprise D behind the shuttle bay and the Enterprise name. So by this point, the star drive hull was basically finished, and you started the windows on the saucer section top itself. You can see great detail on the phaser strip here. And as you can see, the windows fit very nicely in the recesses. So they really planned it out. And you can see the model guide here, how I mark down which sections have the windows and which sections need them. So I just worked my way around the saucer bit by bit. alternating sections, of course, between the escape pods and the windows to make sure that nothing got wet or moved out of place, which is what had happened with my 2500 scale Enterprise D. You probably saw that already. And I took pictures from all four sides. The saucer section isn't quite complete, but you can see the remaining two sections that need to be put on. And there they are there. You can see it from the back, the top back. I don't have the registry number yet. I wanted to make that one of the final touches, but from the front view, there you can see the registry number. And there's a close-up of the shuttle bay with the Enterprise D and the registry number. And I did window decals even where I'd done blue before. And you can see here how those window decals went on pretty well. They aligned quite nicely. Did the edge saucer thrusters. Just had to remember which way to turn them. Longer from top to bottom than they are from right to left. And then they went on properly and they'd actually fold. You can see the red stripe on top of the impulse engine. I colored that antique gold because this is a Star Trek 50 years kit. And antique gold is almost the exact same color as those thrusters are. They're actually lighter than the escape pod. And there's the deflector dish decal. It centered itself quite nicely. And the name Enterprise on the port nacelle along with the thrusters. And the same on the starboard nacelle along with its thruster decals, which work quite well. And you can see the little green light. So there is what my model bench looked like when the ship was in the I'm working on it section of the table. Basically had an entire huge table, but really only gave myself a small section of cutting mat to work on. But it turned out quite well, and the ship worked. Everything seemed to work out nicely. And you can see I started doing the All Good Things red stripes along the nacelles. Because I figured since I used the phaser strips, I would do the nacelle stripes also. So that's what I did. And it worked. It worked out quite well. And you can see here how I did more nacelle stripes on the inner sections of the nacelles, both port and now you can see starboard. And now I basically get into some beauty shots where I did the model, the star drive on the display stand itself, just to make sure it would balance correctly. So that's where I moved it into my living room onto my coffee table and took all the images from there. And then you can see how I did some final detailing on the bottom of the star drive hull. I basically went over it in gray, and then I put did some ice metallic blue to compensate for the Aztec decal that had messed up. And there you can see the sticker I use for the name of the ship. And now you can see the ship on the base with the sticker. And these are basically just beauty shots of the star drive section on my kitchen table, actually. You can see that from there. You can see the back side here. And the next picture should show the port side. And then there should be one more beauty shot which shows the front of the ship, just the star drive section. And then I started taking beauty shots of the ship itself. There it is with the Enterprise E, in the living room. And then there it is on my model shelf at my old apartment, which I had in 2020. You can see it against the living room curtains there, but you can see how the light shines on the ship. And then in my new model room, you can see the ship on the shelf here. And the bottom of the star drive hull with some of the metallic accents and the ice metallic blue. So basically that is the end of the model display show for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and that I will post this tonight to my YouTube channel. So I'll talk to you all later, and hope you're having a good Easter.